අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 14th of June 2023. Guinness record. Sri Lanka's army hospital sets a world record for extracting the world's largest and heaviest kidney stone. Tackling global issues. French president invites President Ranil Wickremesinghe to France for the Global Leaders Summit. Streamlining the process. New online passport application system to commence tomorrow, says Public Security Minister. Essential. Need a regional network to tackle terrorism financing, says Dr. Pratibha Mahanamaheva. Police highlights the insufficiency of existing laws to tackle pressing issues.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. Sri Lanka entered the Guinness World Records for successfully extracting the world's largest and heaviest kidney stone. The extracted kidney stone measures 13.372 centimeters in length and weighed a whopping 801 grams. The calculus was removed by a team of army doctors at the Colombo Army Hospital on the 1st of June.
In an extraordinary medical achievement, a team of Sri Lankan army doctors successfully removed the world's largest and heaviest kidney stone and etched its name in the Guinness World Records. The integrated surgery was performed at the Army Hospital in Colombo on the 1st of June and involved a team of urologists, surgeons and support staff. The head of the genitourinary unit at the Colombo Army Hospital, consultant urologist Lieutenant Colonel Dr. K. Suthashan, took the lead in the surgery together with Captain Dr. W.B.S.C. Patirana and Dr. Tamasha Prematilaka. Colonel Dr. U.A.L.D. Pereira and Colonel Dr. C.S. Abesinghe also participated during the surgery as consultant anesthetists. The kidney stone removed from the patient during the operation was 13.372 centimeters long and weighed 801 grams. Per the existing Guinness World Records, the previous record of 13 centimeters had not been surpassed since 2004. Meanwhile, the heaviest kidney stone was recorded in Pakistan in 2008 with a weight of 620 grams. According to those parameters, the recent surgery performed by the Sri Lankan army doctors made its way to the Guinness World Records under the title World's Largest Kidney Stone. Speaking to the media, the head of the genitourinary unit at the Colombo Army Hospital, consultant urologist Lieutenant Colonel Dr. K. Suthashan said that the patient has recovered on schedule and is set to be discharged either today or tomorrow.
Patient, he's a 62-year-old retired army soldier. He presented to us with right-sided loin pain, and we investigated him and we found out there is a large stone occupying his right kidney. And we did a further advanced investigation like CT scan, and we found out the length of 13.3 centimeter. So we made an initial preparation for the surgery. We expected several complications because of the size of the stone and the duration of the stone, which was in the patient minimum of more than 10 years. So we anticipated all the problems and we took all the precautions, and we had all the facilities available at Army Hospital Colombo, and we performed the surgery on 1st of June 2023, and we removed the stone and we measured the stone. The actual size was 13.372 centimeter and its weight was 800 grams. So our stone made a double record in Guinness book. We got a double Guinness record by performing this right-sided pyelolithotomy. Patient is recovered very well and he is about to leave the hospital probably today or tomorrow.
French President Emmanuel Macron has invited President Ranil Wickremesinghe to participate in the highly anticipated Global Leaders Summit for a new global financing pact in a bid to address pressing worldwide issues. The event is scheduled to take place in Paris on the 22nd and 23rd of June, and the French president has expressed his appreciation for President Wickremesinghe's presence at the summit, emphasizing the importance of collective success in shaping a better future for generations to come.
French President Emmanuel Macron of the French Republic has invited world leaders, including President Ranil Wickremesinghe, to participate in the highly anticipated Global Leaders Summit for a new global financing pact. The event, which is scheduled to take place in Paris on 22nd and 23rd of June, aims to address the pressing challenges faced by the world today. The summit highlights the urgency of finding solutions to multiple crises plaguing the global community. These crises range from climate change and biodiversity loss to the ongoing impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, escalating conflicts and growing inequalities. Recognizing the need for a new financial pact to confront these challenges, President Macron extended a formal invitation to President Wickremesinghe, emphasizing the importance of collective action. The summit aims to establish a shared vision for reforming the multilateral financial sector and charting a path towards a decarbonized global economy that aligns with UN Sustainable Development Goals. The President's media division said the French President expressed his appreciation for President Wickremesinghe's presence at the summit, emphasizing the importance of collective success in shaping a better future for generations to come. Yesterday, Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Bandulu Gunawardena said the President, who will be visiting the UK and France next week, is scheduled to hold talks with Paris Club creditors to address Sri Lanka's debt restructuring process.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka raises deep concerns over a rise in custodial debts and criminal activity in many parts of the country in recent times. Issuing a statement, the Bar Association stated that custodial debts is one of the worst crimes in a civilized society under the rule of law. The statement said the Sri Lankan legal system provides for investigation, inquiry, trial and punishment by proper authorities, which is the base of democracy and the rule of law, and the credibility and transparency of such process must be diligently and fiercely preserved. BASL stated in terms of Article 13 of the Constitution, no person shall be punished with death or imprisonment except by order of a competent court. The BASL noted that the superior courts repeatedly held that the extrajudicial killing of a suspect in police custody violated the right to life despite the absence of an explicit right to life in the Constitution of Sri Lanka. The Bar Association insists that the duty of the state is not only to safeguard the rights of citizens, but also to compensate the victims and punish those who violate the law. Accordingly, the association urges the government, together with other stakeholders, to impose stricter laws and punishments to errant police officers and misuse their powers and fail to fulfill their duties. The Department of Meteorology has extended the weather advisory for the severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy over the east-central Arabian Sea. Concurrently considering the prevailing weather condition, the National Building Research Organization extended its early landslide warnings issued to Kegaul and Ratnapura districts. The Department of Meteorology extended the advisory issued for severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy over the east-central Arabian Sea until 5 p.m. tomorrow. The department further says that it would move nearly northeastwards during the next 24 hours. Showers or thundershowers are said to continue in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and the Galle, Matara, Kandy and Norelia districts. Fairly heavy rainfall of about 75 millimeters can be expected in the Sabaragamuwa province and in Galle, Matara, Kalutara and Colombo districts. Meanwhile, the National Building Research Organization has extended its early landslide warnings issued to Kegaul and Ratnapura districts till 4 p.m. tomorrow in light of the most recent weather patterns.
With the cessation of the rain, the issued red warning has been removed and the warning for the saturated areas has been extended to 4 p.m. tomorrow. With that, warning level 2 amber alert warning was issued to Derana, English and Yatiyanthota Division Secretary Kegol District, Alapatha, Ahliyagoda, Ratnapura, Nivitigala and Kalavana Division Secretary Division Ratnapura District. Warning level 1 watch yellow warning was issued to Kuruvita, Ayagama, Palmadula and Kiriyalla Division Secretary Division Ratnapura District.
The new online passport application system will commence operations tomorrow. Minister of Public Security Derana English said that the new system will be launched under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Home Agama Divisional Secretariat. Accordingly, the program is implemented with the objective of establishing easy access to obtain passports and ensure that passports are received to the applicant's residence within just 3 days. The minister added that the Immigration and Immigration Services will continue to process single-day passport issuance service as usual. We'll be back after this short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ඩීමෝ වෙතින්.
අබාන්ස් මිඩ්ඩිය මෑඩ්නස් සේල් 50% දක්වා වට්ටම් සමග මාස 24ක් දක්වා පොලි රහිතව ජුනි 20 වනදා දක්වා පමණයි.
ඒත්‍රිත්වය තහවුරු කළ විශිෂ්ටත්වය දුෂ්‍යන්ත මහබදුගේ චරිත දිසානායක සමිතරත් නායක සිසිජී නුගේගොඩ ගම්පහ.
ෆිසික්ස් නිලන්ත ජයසූරිය නවපන්ති ආරම්භය සුසිපුවන් ගම්පහ සීලින් පෙන් නුගේගොඩ සයන්ස් සෙන්ටර් ගාල්ල.
පහනුවර කුරුණෑගල කෑකල්ල අංකකේ භෞතික විද්‍යා පාඨමාලාව නුගේගොඩද අතික්‍රමණය කළ වගයි. ෆිසික්ස් දර්ශන ඔකුවෙල.
තනිව යන ගමනට නිවැරදි ගිණුම් කරන මග හේමාල් පෙරේරා.
Welcome back in business news. The CSE All Share Price Index settled at 9,216.49, gaining 1.62%, registering gains for a fifth straight session. LOLC Holdings and Commercial Bank were the top gainers on the CSE All Share Index, rising 6.8% and 9.7% respectively. The ASPI was supported by price gains in counters such as Commercial Bank, LOLC Holdings and Valuable One, with turnover crossing 2.7 billion rupees. Similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20. The trading volume rose to 123.7 million shares from 116.8 million shares in the previous session. The equity market's turnover rose to 2.71 billion Sri Lankan rupees from 1.59 billion rupees in the previous session. Diversified Financials was the top contributor to the market turnover, while capital goods followed with the second highest contribution. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 492.8 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 2.41 billion rupees. Now let's have a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Global oil prices rose today as investors awaited the outcome of the US Federal Reserve's June meeting after bullish oil demand growth forecasts from the International Energy Agency and the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. A pause in the Fed's rate increases would spur economic growth and oil demand, supporting prices.
Brent crude futures were up by 1% at $75.05 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude was up by 0.9% at $70.05. Both benchmarks climbed more than 3% the previous day on hopes of rising fuel demand after China's central bank lowered a short-term lending rate. Market participants expect the US Central Bank's Federal Open Market Committee to pause interest rate hikes because of uncertainty over the economic outlook and the lagged effects of 10 rate increases since March 2022. Higher interest rates strengthen the dollar, making commodities denominated in the US currency more expensive for holders of other currencies. A pause in the Fed's rate increases would spur economic growth and oil demand, supporting prices. The International Energy Agency, meanwhile, increased its oil demand growth forecast for this year by 200,000 barrels per day to 2.4 million, lifting the projected total to 102.3 million barrels per day. The International Energy Agency's 2023 oil demand growth figure is slightly above that of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. On the supply side, US crude oil stocks rose by about 1 million barrels in the week ended in the 9th of June, contrary to an average estimate of a 500,000 barrel decline from analysts polled by Reuters. Meanwhile, government data on stockpiles is due later in the day.
Former chairman of the Human Rights Commission and legal expert Dr. Pratibha Mahana Maheva says a strong network with the participation of all the SAARC nations is essential to counter terrorism financing in the region. He made these comments while addressing the launch of Volume 9 of the Ambassadors Forum publication, Foreign Policy Perspectives. Meanwhile, senior DIG Ajit Rohana highlighted the necessity of strong laws to tackle the drug menace, stating that existing legal provisions in the Dangerous Drugs Ordinance and Money Laundering Act are insufficient to counter existing threats.
Volume 9 of Foreign Policy Perspectives, published by the Ambassadors Forum on the theme Financial Services, was launched in Colombo under the patronage of Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapa Abeyewardena. Concurrently, the Ambassadors Forum presented awards to individuals representing 6 sectors, honouring their contributions to society. Former President of the Bar Association President's Council Salia Pieris, Executive Director of the Centre for Policy Alternatives Dr. Pakisoti Saranamuttu, Senior DIG of Police Ajit Rohana, Additional Director of the Department of Government Information Milinda Rajapaksha, Archaeology expert Amawanya Arachi, as well as AdaDerana's broadcast journalist Sanka Amarajit and Indiyori Amuatta were awarded by the Ambassadors Forum in recognition of their service to the nation.
So we have come a long way from 1 to 9 on varied topics. Now 9 is on financial services. If you know what kind of difficulty is handling financial activities, not only in the country, anywhere in the world. It is the most important part of the job and also most difficult part of management. So, especially in a country like ours, you have experience how or what happened to us in this field.
When you talk about financial services, on the other hand, corporate crime very high. Now these are not handled in many universities as well as our syllabuses, how to combat with white collar crime. That is corporate crime. We need most of the time protect the economy. Economic crimes. Even in my law school, we have not studied here economic crimes. And also we have to be very careful funding terrorism. UNHRC also highly discuss in this funding terrorism. Sri Lanka also hot topic. You must have a proper network in Asian countries. SAARC countries are there, very rarely they meet. But at least if you can have a system in the SAARC system to promote investment and also to stop combating this money sent to terrorists, that is one of the main things.
If the main problem in our country in respect of financial crimes is, I believe, the drug problem. The Dangerous Drugs Ordinance, which was enacted by the British rulers in 1929, approximately 93 years ago, but the provisions of the ordinance are not sufficient to deal with drug dealers and drug kingpins. An amendment was brought to the principal enactment in 2022, but the provisions are not sufficient. And apart from that, the Money Laundering Act was enacted in 2006, but the provisions are not sufficient in order to deal with these drug dealers.
Human rights, as I understand it, is pivotal to all public policy, and foreign policy being no exception in that respect. Human rights in Sri Lanka has been a controversial issue, but nevertheless always high on the public agenda for very good reasons. We need to recognize and get as many policymakers and decision makers to come on board to the notion that if a policy ignores human rights, that policy is bound to fail sooner or later.
Welcome back in international news. Russia's war in Ukraine, refugees fleeing Afghanistan and the fighting in Sudan have pushed the total number of refugees forced to seek shelter abroad and those displaced within their own countries to an unprecedented level in recent days. According to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the number of people forcibly displaced around the world has climbed to a record 110 million.
UNHRC's flagship annual report, titled Global Trends of Forced Displacement, has found that by the end of 2022, the number of people displaced by war, persecution, violence, and human rights abuses stood at a record 108.4 million, up by 19.1 million on a year earlier, which was the biggest ever increase. The upward trajectory in global forced displacement showed no signs of slowing in 2023 as the eruption of conflict in Sudan triggered new outflows, pushing the global total to an estimated 110 million by May. Issuing the report yesterday, UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi said these figures show that some people are far too quick to rush to conflict and way too slow to find solutions. Of the global total, 35.3 million were refugees, while a greater share of 58%, representing 62.5 million people, were displaced in their home countries due to conflict and violence. The war in Ukraine was the top driver of displacement in 2022. The number of refugees from Ukraine soared from 27,300 at the end of 2021 to 5.7 million at the end of 2022, representing the fastest outflow of refugees anywhere since World War II. Estimates for the number of refugees from Afghanistan were sharply higher by the end of 2022 due to revised estimates of Afghans hosted in Iran, many having arrived in previous years. Similarly, the report reflected upward revision of 5.2 million by Colombia and Peru of the number of Venezuelans categorized as other people in need of international protection hosted in those countries. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees meanwhile noted that much more must be done to end conflict and remove obstacles so that refugees have the viable option to return home voluntarily, safely, and with dignity. The Global Trends report was launched 6 months ahead of the second Global Refugee Forum, a major gathering in Geneva, bringing together a range of actors to find new solutions for and embed solidarity with people forced to flee and their hosts.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.